Waterloo Turf business owner.
Franchise system has been around. That's
What's the best way to do it? Many franchise owners,
typical like sales process.
a lot of money on the line.
Synthetic turf looks simple from the outside. Underneath it is a project-driven business with real complexity. Large installs, tight timelines, commercial and residential buyers. But ultimately, the riches are in the niches, and Waterloo Turf is an ideal niche business. Well, if this episode resonates with you, head to the link below and complete the form, and I'd love to connect. Waterloo Turf exists because two very different skill sets cross paths. Tim Lovett brought deep franchising experience and was actively looking for the next scalable concept. And Lance Ingram was already running a successful turf business and living the operational reality every day. So this episode pulls back the curtain on how an operator-led business became a franchise system, what stayed the same, what had to change, and what owners really sign up for it. So welcome, gentlemen. Great to have you, Lance and Tim.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. If you could, just a little background about yourselves, and then we'll jump into like how Tim found you, Lance, and how you started in your industry, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I can definitely do that. So Lance Ingram founded Waterloo in 2021. I've actually had turf experience dating back to when I graduated college in 2016. I helped start a separate turf company, which I helped run for about 3 years. And 3 years in, I just kind of got lured away by the corporate, whatever you call it. I saw my buddies traveling, going to all these different events, going across the country. And I was like, that looks cool. They've got like benefits and stuff. That sounds fun.
Until
And so I was talking to friends. I'm like, I'm going to quit my turf company. I'm going to sell off the ownership I have. I'm going to go into the corporate world. And I remember at the time, all my buddies were like, don't do that. Like, stop what you're thinking. Like, you've got a good thing going and you've got what a lot of people want. You're your own boss, all that good stuff. And I am, unfortunately, a guy that's like, I've got to touch the stove to make sure it's hot. And so I ended up doing that. I went into the medical device space for about 2 years. And I quickly realized that being your own boss is a lot more fun than having bosses. It's a lot more fun than being in the operating room, answering the surgeons, all the high stress activities that go into that. And so pretty quickly into that 2 years, I decided I'm gonna go back to turf. And I'm not a forward enough thinker to be like, I was gonna quit turf to ultimately come back to turf. Like, that's not how it played out. But
Yeah.
ultimately I came back to turf because once you're in turf, it just calls you back. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get away from it. So yeah, the
So
same month me and my wife got married in 2021, I quit my medical device job and I started up Waterloo Turf. Wouldn't necessarily recommend you do that. The honeymoon phase
right.
may not last as long as it should, but that's what happened. 2021 went great, and then I just ran it solo for about 3 years, and then 2024 I expanded out to San Antonio with a friend of mine, and that really validated all the systems and everything that had been going on in Austin pretty quickly, to the point that about 6 months in, I was like, all right, San Antonio's up and running. It's going great. I want to continue to expand this company. And I was just trying to figure out like, what's the best way to do it? Do I want to continue to do it corporately like I did with San Antonio and just do it city by city, or go the franchising route, which I really didn't know too much about besides
Right.
like the McDonald's of the worlds, or, I had a friend that actually recently franchised his company and I kind of followed along with his journey. So I was at that point with Waterloo where I was just like trying to figure out what was next. It was the number one item on my list. And it was at that same time that my wife and I joined a small group through our church. Timmy and his wife were in that same small group. So we started to get to know each other for a few months, didn't talk about work or anything like that. And ultimately went on a double date, ran out of things to talk about, started to talk about, what do you do for work, or what do you do? Really, that conversation was, I'm in turf, I'm looking into franchising. That's crazy. I'm in franchising, looking into find a turf company. So that's how that all happened, and
I-
here we are now.
That is a really, really cool story. That is really great. So yeah, so Tim, give us your perspective on that and how what you were exactly looking for and how it all just seemed to fall together. It sounds like, but I'm sure
Yeah.
not overnight. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Laura. Good to see you again. You nailed the intro. That was
Thank
a
you.
That was a great intro on any of these that we've been on. So, as Lance said, so really prior to myself meeting Lance, I was an operations executive at a home services franchise platform. And so,
Hmm.
leading the coaching teams, the training teams, brand marketing, the launch teams. And we launched quite a few territories and a lot of owners across a few different brands during. While I was there, I started to put my eye on turf. I saw that there's no other national name brand, there's no other franchise brand. And one of my observations that I had while I was there was that many franchise owners who do really well in home services typically are part of the first national brand of whatever the brand in that given trade was. And so seeing that there was not another national brand in turf, we primarily compete against local landscapers who do turf on the side. We also have turf competitors who just operate out of a single location. And typically, at best, we're operating against more, or we're competing against more of a um, regional turf competitor. And so I felt like there was a lot of opportunity for a national name brand to come into play. So I went out to go look for a turf company to franchise and looked for about a year and a half before Lance and I met through our church. And I had a really good idea of what I was looking at because I had looked at a bunch of turf companies to franchise. And for one reason or another, ultimately decided not to franchise any of the other ones. But as Lance and I began to talk a little bit more and I got to learn about the way that he installs turf, the Waterloo Turf way, it was just really unique in the way that he was operating. Ultimately, we put our partnership together. Quickly after we had that conversation at a pub one night, we went out and raised capital so that we could forward invest in the franchise system. We were pretty confident that we were going to grow quickly, but at the same time wanted to make sure that we had already brought on the support in the team so that our franchise owners could go and launch their businesses successfully. And it's been a fun year since we officially launched last December.
Amazing. One thing Lance, you just said too in your opening, which I have to say caught my, or surprised me a little bit. And maybe I've heard it before, but 6 months you had it, you knew the systems were working. I mean, even people that get into a franchise system that's been around, that's hard to make 6 months. Clearly, it's a testament to you and your business skills, but that's impressive. I mean, and then to know, if you could do that quickly in a second location, then this is a very franchisable thing. But 6 months and the systems are running
I
well.
mean, yeah, it's very much a credit also to our GM in San Antonio. He's an absolute killer. He's a grinder. So
That's fantastic.
Tim as well, but yeah, our systems were validated, and that's the systems that we were doing before we really cleaned them up through franchising as well. So the systems have only improved since then, which has been cool to see.
Yeah, no, so neat. Fascinating that Tim, you were actually looking for something like this and hadn't found it. And it makes so much sense when I was first introduced to your brand. I thought, wow, this has got to go places. This is incredible. This will be interesting to see. But it's a newer brand, right? So people have to get used to that cycle. But I really like about how you go about how you're training, how you talk through the onboarding and whatnot, but which we can get into. What part of the business model, I guess, was non-negotiable that couldn't change, or did you have to change anything, or is everything, as you're building out this franchise system, when you looked at the business, and Tim, when you looked at the business, anything that stood out that was like, well, it's clearly it sounds like the installation process is unique, but what else was so unique that you knew you had a winner here?
Yeah, so after talking with many turf companies to franchise, and I would go out to their install sites at times, and I would kind of see how they were estimating and how their projects were ran. It quickly occurred to me that Waterloo Turf was extremely different for a few different reasons. Number one, on the estimating side. So Lance has been utilizing technology to estimate for his turf jobs. And so virtually all of our competitors drag a tape measure across the yard and come up with a number and
Okay.
maybe add a couple hundred square feet just to account for measurement mistakes.
Hmm.
The way that I saw Lance estimating was that he was using technology so that he was more than 99% accurate on the square feet and using technology to eliminate waste costs so that the customer didn't have to overpay for turf, but that they were getting the right amount of turf that they needed. I saw that and knew that it was super unique to Waterloo Turf. And then secondly is just the way that the installs were done were much more quality. Lance had a bunch of 5-star reviews, and you can't say that for every turf company.
That's incredible. No, I'm sure that's a winner with the homeowner too, or whoever you're installing, because there's nothing more you like to see than somebody's doing an installation of something. You're like, all that leftover, which I know I paid for. Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we've all been there. So when you started pulling this all together, how did you identify who your ideal type of franchise, the systems you're going to put in place to onboard people? Like what came together that you would know how to identify the right type of owner? for Waterloo?
Yeah, I think what's really unique about Waterloo Turf as well when we went to go franchise it. And so, number one, there's already a successful location in Austin. But
Hmm.
number two, there was a validation market in San Antonio. And so, we had seen, we just didn't have to guess on any of this. The systems and processes have already been used not only in one location, but in another location. Neither location is this 20 or 30-year-old business to where hey, they've just got so much market recognition and brand recognition. You can kind of question the systems and processes at times, but that
Hmm.
it was a newer brand within both cities. And San Antonio really just being about 1 year in when we started a franchise, we knew exactly what we needed to replicate in every market. So from an ideal owner standpoint, really, we just look to replicate Lance as well as his salespeople that he has in Austin and his GM in San Antonio. And so trying to find somebody who is willing to go out and just work really hard. I'm willing to go out, knock on doors commercially, drop in with landscapers, landscape architects, build those relationships, and is willing to sell themselves. And what's different about Waterloo Turf, finding somebody that's just very organized and is going to be ready to take on a high ticket project. Our customers residentially put a lot of money on the line with us. And so we want to
Right.
make sure that they're treated well and that their project goes well. And then lastly, we believe somebody that can just be really personable and good with people is the right owner for Waterloo Turf. A lot of times you'll hear us refer to it as somebody who's a team captain. And what we mean by that is just somebody who's not afraid to lead. So we've seen former college athletes do really well in our brand, former military, former police officers, and former pastors as well. Anybody who's been able to go out and really kind of drive business for themselves is a good fit.
So the owner, are they doing the sales as well as then I guess talk about that sales process and then managing the crews. Like when a new franchisee starts, what are they doing initially and how are they getting those sales?
Yeah, if Timmy, I can go, but you jump in where I miss. If it's owner operator model, yeah, they're running the full things from sales to overseeing the project to all the behind the scenes nitty gritty business development things that a business owner needs to take care of. So they get trained through the entire process. Once they're on board, they come down to Austin for 4 days. Prior to that, they go through our trainual, which is 50 hours of just straight turf
Yeah.
content, turf knowledge just dumped on them. So they come to Austin with all this turf knowledge in their head. And we want to remove, build the connection between the head knowledge to the actual hands on of the
Hmm.
turf game. So when they come down, they're getting their hands on equipment, they're helping install projects on top of speakers coming in and just the full thing. So as far as the actual day to day, though, they're kicking off jobs with their crew. They've got their crew running. They're out there giving estimates and communicating with their clients efficiently.
A typical like sales process. So let's say are people finding you, I mean, I guess some of your first location, are they finding you organically or you're doing digital leads? And then obviously you're getting some referral base. But I guess initially when they're first starting off, how are they typically getting customers and what's that install process like? How long does that usually take? Things like that.
Yeah, all the above of what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when we
Okay.
launch, we want a few things to happen. So we want a franchise owner to go out and start to establish local relationships with landscapers and landscape architects, pool construction, sport court builders, really anybody who's spending time in a backyard or doing some type of landscape work is going to have a turf lead for us.
Okay.
The other thing is through digital marketing. And so a huge benefit of being in the turf industry is that this is more of a niche home services type industry. And so we're not competing against 100 people within the market who are specialized within turf. In most markets, there's 1 to 3 competitors. And so when we turn on our website and Google recognizes that we're a national brand, we're trusted, we're relevant, we get a lot of credibility because all we're doing is turf. Our franchise owners get a lot of organic leads just off of our website and through the SEO, also through paid advertising as well. And so we do have an in-house marketing team at
Okay.
Waterloo Turf. One of my beliefs is that turf is just a highly visual trade. And so I have a goal to be the number one spender on content within turf because I believe the more people that see quality turf projects, the more people will want to pay to have their turf done in their backyard. And so our marketing team internally does a bunch of organic content. We buy the camera equipment, we have them go out to the job site, shoot content. ultimately posting organic content on our franchise owners' social pages for them. The best performing content our franchise owners will turn around and create paid ads out of with the marketing agencies that we have established with them. So we see leads come from every lead source, whether it's local relationships, those are great. Those are typically really good jobs, as well as paid marketing and organic marketing that we're doing.
And how are you finding the people to install the turf? And how are they trained on your way?
Yeah, there's a few different avenues that you could go down to finding a subcontracted turf installer. Dating back to my original crew in 2016, this is like the lowest of the tiers that you can go through. Is I actually found my first crews through the yellow pages, which do still exist, believe it or not. And so essentially what I was looking for is I was looking for a landscaping company that had very minimal or really no web presence, because to me that meant, they're in landscaping, they're familiar with being in people's backyards and the way that you operate in people's personal space in that way. They probably have most of the equipment that you need for a turf install, but I would imagine they're not super busy because they don't have a web presence and they probably need more work. So that was kind of the first crew I had. What comes along with that is teaching them a little bit more than other crews that you
Mm-hmm.
might find. So you're a little bit more hands-on with that type of crew. So luckily, we actually haven't had anybody in our system have to go that route since 2016 to now almost 2026. Turf popularity, the turf industry has grown so much that there's a lot more turf installers out there than there was 10 years ago. So the best way that most of our partners are finding really high quality, solid turf installers is actually through the manufacturers or the distributors that they're buying turf from.
Okay.
So those are kind of the gatekeepers. These turf distributors want you buying turf from them and installing jobs, but the only way you can install and sell jobs is if you have a crew. And so they have all the tea, they know all the gossip with the crews in the market, who likes working with who's been a good installer. So they're happy to pass those referrals over to us and get us the introduction with a really high quality crew. And then from there, if the specific things that make the Waterloo way,
Yeah.
we go in and we can help train that crew on those specific things that are differentiators between us and other companies. And we have turf coaches within our brand that will actually go on site for these franchisees' first installs and help on site with the partner, but as well as the crew, and training them in those ways to make sure that the Waterloo way continues to be repeated in all these different markets.
Do any of the owners eventually just start hiring these crews full time, or do you keep them 1099?
Yeah, all subcontracted.
Okay. Okay. And in terms of when you're first starting off jobs, do you have franchisees that get big jobs and you guys have to come in and help initially? I mean, I'm sure there's some levels of complexity, or is it easy enough, I should say, to find some of the initial jobs that are kind of ideal that people can get comfortable with?
One of the things that a franchise owner, when they come on, they'll hear us say is it's just turf. And so if you were to go out on a site, Laura, and we'll get you out to one of these days, it looks a lot like outdoor carpet installing for the most part. And so we're shoveling dirt, we're compacting it down, and we're installing carpet on the top. And so it's a simple process. There are some different intricacies that can happen,
Right.
but ultimately, no matter how big the project is that a franchisee is kicking off for their first job, we will go out to their local market for opening support and help them get these first jobs across the line so that they get a 5-star review and start their business the right way. We then provide ongoing support through the coaches, and we'll go out and visit sites. And what I tell everybody is, like, we're happy to go out and help get a job across the line, because we know that the more turf that gets installed for these franchise owners early, if it's quality, it will lead to more jobs that are referrals down the line. And so we've helped franchisees. We've had jobs from a first job be very, very small to some pretty significant projects for a first job that have all gone really well.
I guess break down like an owner's day. I mean, you mentioned getting the crews out, but when they're first starting, I remember that you said something about the first 90 days. They're out there doing a lot of the networking, building those relationships, because once the jobs start rolling, they're pretty busy. But I guess how much is there a ratio of time spent selling versus execution versus follow up? Or I'm sure that varies based on how busy they get, but just a way to try to break down what a typical owner day looks like.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we have built into our system called Groundhog's Day approach, and we're very passionate about it. We believe in the Groundhog's Day approach, and we know that life as a business owner, you have a plan for the day and things might happen, but this is what an ideal repeatable day should be, which is 8:30 a.m. You show up to the job site that you're kicking off or that you're continuing. And so we get asked a lot, isn't 8:30 kind of late for the landscaping construction industry? Don't guys like to start early in the morning? Yes and no. So we like to do 8:30 because it allows our crew to have time in the morning to go pick up any material they might need to meet us at the job site at 8:30,
Right.
rather than us showing up at 7:30 only for them to have to leave, then come back and deal with all that chaos. So 8:30, I show up. I typically like to be there 5 minutes before the crew. That's always
Mm-hmm.
my win of the day, is beating the crew to the job site. Crew should be rolling up at 8:30, and then myself, my foreman, and the client will all walk the job site together if we're
Okay.
kicking it off or we're continuing. And so essentially what we're doing is I'm leading the conversation. I'm making sure that the scope of work that was proposed is still the same thing that the client has in mind. And then once the client signs off and is like, yep, checks all the boxes, gives us the green light, myself, my foreman, and the crew will all walk the project site together to make sure everyone is on the same page. And then from there, I'll head out. And so that process right there is typically about 8:30 to 9 a.m. And then the way I like to schedule my mornings is 9:30, 10:30, and 11:30 are 3 bids a day, 3 estimates per day. And so that gives me enough time to get to each estimate,
Yeah.
spend time with the client, dream with them, ask them, why did you ask us to come out here? What does getting your Saturdays look like for you? And then head to the next estimate. And so ideally by 12:15, 12:30, sit down, eat a little bit of lunch, and then 1:30 to about 3:30, business development, follow up with any emails I haven't been able to get to, calls, maybe do some commercial drop-ins with some partners that I'm trying to grow a relationship with. And
Mm-hmm.
then the goal is to be back on the job site by 4 p.m. every day.
Okay.
And so we've seen that 2 touch points a day at the job site is highly effective with the client. The client understands, especially with the owner operator model, you've got a lot of things going on. You've got a lot of things throughout your day, but you being at my project that I'm paying good money for twice a day
Yeah.
lets me know that my project is still a priority to you, which is massive because like Timmy was saying, in the turf industry, it's a very noticed product. So the way we describe it as well is if you have gutters installed and you have friends come over, they're not going to be like, Laura, your gutters look so good. Like who did those for you? They're
Yep.
probably not going to notice them. But when you have turf installed, it's going to be noticed. And
That's for
so
sure.
and so that's a double-edged sword where it's high quality will be noticed, low quality will be noticed, but obviously we want to perform high quality. And so that same aspect goes with 2 touch points per day, where they're like, not only was the quality amazing, but they showed up on time. The owner was there twice. Best experience I've ever had. And so once the job is completed, if it is that same day, we want to be there when the job's finished, meet the client when they walk out and walk on their new yard for the first time. We call it the move that bus moment from that TLC show,
Yeah. Used
where
to
it's
love
just
that.
like they're stoked. They're so excited, and we bring the excitement out there with them. And they just get to see their new yard and start playing on it and all that good stuff. And we want to give them a hat. We want to gain a review from them if they feel that we're worthy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Finish out the invoice there as well, so we can move on to the next job starting the next day.
Fantastic. So when an owner struggles, so you're bringing on franchisees now, what do you see as some of the initial challenges for them as they're building out their business?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've seen, which has been funny. So when Lance and I put this together, we said we want to have so much training that it feels overwhelming. And a lot of feedback we've gotten from our franchise owners is this operations manual is really overwhelming. And so we've actually recognized and have identified, hey, what's a need to know? And then what is, hey, maybe we just index this in the glossary. It's not necessarily something to go through. And so we've tried to prioritize a little bit more of what does it mean to be installing turf as a Waterloo Turf business owner. And so what we have done, and really one of our focuses for this next year, is how do we prioritize everything that we're doing, get really good at just a few things, and then run it like Groundhog's Day. And so trying to focus as much as possible is a big priority for us. And I think, as a new business owner, what I like to tell everybody is the first 90 days are probably going to be chaotic no matter what. It just is what it is. You're going to go out there. And even if you're doing things the right way, it's totally different than what you were just doing. A lot of our franchise owners are coming from medical sales or the military or as police officers, whatever it might be. And when you're coming in and starting to sell turf every single day, it's just different. And so we want to focus everything, establish really good habits during those first 90 days that franchise owners launch. And then from there, it just becomes repeatable for them.
That's fantastic. Lance, what's your favorite job you've ever done?
I did just do my house and we put in a putting green and that was pretty sweet. But we've done a lot of like event centers. I think the coolest ones are honestly the coolest jobs are when they're public spaces or their friends' backyards or some way where I get to continue to see them. Okay? My wife, she could attest to this. We'll be driving around Austin. I'll just nudge her, be like, see that house? We turfed that. Or see that? Turfed it. So like that's fun for me. But yeah, I mean, any time that it's like family oriented and you might run into them and they're like, "Hey, I need to stop you and tell you, y'all installed our turf 2 years ago and I cannot explain to you like how much it has changed our day to day." So
That's
that's
so
that's
cool.
always the best.
Didn't know it could be a verb too. I turfed it.
Turf it. I turf that.
And I would assume with your buying power and being a national brand, you can be very competitive on pricing compared to these smaller operations that you're competing against.
I think that's probably been the most exciting thing, Laura, since we started to franchise this is that today we've got a full year now under our belts of different franchise owners starting to buy turf and different materials. And so we have significantly more pricing power on the materials than we did when it was just Lance, and the
Yeah.
numbers that he was putting up in our FDD. And so we're going to continue to press there. And I think just being the only national brand within the artificial turf space gets us a lot of leverage and a lot of excitement from suppliers who want to come partner with us.
Any also like forward looking where you want to, how many owners you want to get up to, maybe short term and long term? And then do you see national counts working in this as well? Some type of, whether it's the doggy daycares or I don't know. I mean, I know that's down the road. You need a lot of franchisees for it, but any thoughts there?
As far as growth, our goal is to be the national name brand in turf. And so we're going to be singularly focused on that. As far as how long it takes us to get there, Lance and I both are in this for the long haul. Like we've got an
Hmm.
objective and we want to get there the right way. And so one of our big goals is we just want to bring on quality franchise owners. And so
Yeah.
people who are committed to going and winning and doing quality turf installs in their local markets. Ultimately, that's how Waterloo Turf becomes a national name brand. And we can build an iconic brand and we can put together really great operational systems, but it starts with putting the right franchise owners in place and supporting them with all the resources that we have so that they can be successful. On the national account side, that's certainly a part of the strategy. It's pretty crazy. We went on LinkedIn and just announced, "Hey, we're franchising Waterloo Turf," and at this point, it was just Lance still. And we started to get messages immediately from vendors like gyms, pool
Really?
remodelers, immediately saying, "Hey, we want to partner with you." And we had to tell them, "Hey, I got to get back to you in about a year here because we're still only in Austin and San Antonio."
Wow.
And so there's a bunch of demand out there that we have been starting to put together, especially in the golf simulator space as well. And
Yeah.
so there are all of these accounts who all have very big pain points when it comes to artificial turf because all of their locations have slightly different installs. There's no uniformity across some of these other businesses. And so it's going to be a huge point of focus for us. I would say give us 6 months, and that's going to be something that's
Wow.
going to be a big focus for us.
Fantastic. So how many franchisees are you up to now?
Yep. So we have 13 franchise owners and 45 territories that they own between them.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. And how long does it typically take for once someone, goes through the process, signs with you to when they're opening? What's that journey look like?
We talk about our launch process taking 90 days from the time that you sign your agreement to kicking off your first job. However, we track this really closely, and currently we average 75 days from the time they sign their franchise agreement to the first dollar hitting their bank account. And so
Wow.
for us, it's all about how do we get people up and running very quickly while still making sure that they know what they're doing. And if somebody is launching a little bit sooner, then maybe, they're ready for it because they went out and they were doing the things and following the system and promoting their business and turf leads start to come in. We have all the support in the world to just go and do these jobs for them to make sure that they're jumping off on the right foot.
Gotcha. And so the ideal candidate, I'm sure it's got to be someone that's, I mean, there's got to be a well-rounded individual, someone that's comfortable with getting out there, networking, sales, meeting with customers, but also managing crews. So that, yeah, no, I think it makes sense to be selective. But I imagine there's quite a few out there. You talked about some of the different backgrounds, but I would even imagine some of the sales backgrounds could do well in this. And the operation, is the sales part of it difficult for people, or is the operation probably more like if you had to weigh one side that you'd rather have somebody have strong skills in, would it be the operation side or the sales side?
I think one of the things that we've seen that works really well in this Laura, is that like this is just it's a people business. So both on the operations side and the customer side.
Yeah.
So Lance's sales reps and his GM, they actually all have the same background. They're former fly fishing guides. And so neither of them had a sales background or a turf background or a landscape background.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I always say if I can do it, a lot of people
I think
say
you're
it.
selling yourself short. Well, this has been great. Anything else that's important to you for people to think about as they're evaluating your franchise?
I mean,
I think
like you just said, you kind of described who we're looking for. We want someone that, yeah, is a team captain, is a grinder,
Hmm.
committed to, the area that they're in, and ultimately like passionate about being the turf pro within their market. People want to work with people that are passionate. Small business owners, we have a lot of pride in that, and we leverage it into our business and make sure that our partners can as well. I would say that's kind of the target that we're chasing with everyone.
Anything else you want to add to that, Tim?
yeah, I think the who we've been excited about and who's done really well in our system is exactly what Lance said. But also, yes, somebody who's excited to just help homeowners get their Saturdays back.
Yeah.
So being a part of something, you might be able to lump us into, the boring businesses, but we think it's super exciting when you get to
Yeah.
go and transform somebody's yard and then see what happens after that to their family.
I can't even imagine. That's got to be such a great feeling. I mean, it's very tangible. You've got a beautiful product at the end of the day. I wouldn't call that a boring business at all.
I mean,
No, I
I
really
oh, sorry to cut you off. I was
no.
just gonna say
Yeah.
I totally agree with Tim. I've been in the turf game for the better part of 10 years, and I still get excited when I get to see the before with the project and then meet with the homeowners after. Like, I'm still giddy driving over to the job site, knowing it's wrapped up and getting to experience that with the home. Like, it's the best. It's the
Yeah.
best.
This has been wonderful. I've been excited to have you guys on. I'm confident of this success continuing to grow. I think you've built a really wonderful company here, and with a real good product and service that is going to be huge demand. It's great for the environment, and I love everything about it. So thanks again for joining.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Laura.
And if this episode resonates with you and you want to hear more, please click the link below, and we'd love to talk with you.